How do you discern what is truly toxic? It used to be that all you had to do was look for that skull and crossbones warning label indicating the presence of poisonous chemicals that could cause you death or serious harm. Or maybe if you were a big outdoor enthusiast, you would have to study which berries or mushrooms to avoid. But now, that word toxic has taken on a whole new meaning. WebMD has a whole article dedicated to what it calls the toxic person. According to WebMD, a toxic person is someone who creates a lot of stress and unpleasantness for you and others, not to mention emotional or even physical pain. Anyone whose behavior adds negativity and upset to your life. In other words, a toxic person is a medical poison to you. Our culture today really loves talking about toxic people. But who gets to decide which people are toxic? How do you know which people you need to avoid to protect your personal well-being? And who is trustworthy enough to help you answer these questions? From the beginning, my intention in making these timely word videos was to accomplish two purposes: to teach the Bible faithfully in relatively short messages, and to demonstrate how the Bible timelessly speaks to our world today just as much as it spoke to the world in which it was originally written. Now, there is a lot of disagreement in our culture today about a lot of different topics: race, gender, justice, self-identity. More and more people are doubting the traditional Christian view on all of these topics. Why are so many people, apparently, deciding to ditch the Christian church and its message? How do we, as Christians, respond to the issues that seem to drive people away from the Christian faith? So, moving forward with these videos, I'm going to take on some of the tough questions that are going viral and stirring up doubt and distrust in the Christian faith. Because, in all honesty, doubting people have good questions that deserve thoughtful answers. Now, I'm not going to be able to give full and comprehensive answers to each question. There are plenty of good books and podcasts out there that already do an excellent job of going deep on tough issues from a biblical perspective. But I do want to show you how the Bible is the right path for dealing with any and every tough question. So to introduce this theme, I decided to use one particular tough issue to make two important ground floor observations. The issue is toxic masculinity. Now, I'm not going to try to settle the debate about toxic masculinity in this video, but by using this issue, I want to show you two different evangelical Christian approaches to how to answer the issue. And the first one comes from a book called Non-Toxic Masculinity: Recovering Healthy Male Sexuality by Zachary Wagner. The book was published by InterVarsity Press and it came out earlier this year. Already, it's becoming very popular in some Christian circles. Essentially, it is a critique of the so-called purity culture movement, which was a common church approach to teaching youth especially about Christian sexuality in recent decades. I found myself agreeing with many of the critiques presented by the author. While I appreciated the desire to promote purity and biblical faithfulness in young people, I was never a big fan of the methods and the motivations commonly used by the purity culture movement. But the further I got into this book, the more frustrated I became. I kept waiting for Wagner to tear down the harmful church teachings about male sexuality and then rebuild them on the basis of a healthy scriptural male sexuality. But that never happened. He quoted a stray Bible verse here or there, precious few, but mostly he focused on showing examples of individual experiences gone wrong. By the end of the book, I felt like he traded just one guilt-based system for another guilt-based system. The second book is The Toxic War on Masculinity: How Christianity Reconciles the Sexes by Nancy Pearcey. This was published by Baker Books and it came out literally just last week. Piercy starts with a biblical blueprint for understanding masculinity. And she starts in the beginning, Genesis 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. God is the one who created the concept of male and female in the first place. And certainly he has something to say about what manhood is and what makes it healthy. Both books have the words toxic and masculinity in the title. Both books critique church teachings and church cultures. Both books deal honestly with errors that churches have made, perhaps well-intentioned, but with unexpected consequences that have caused great harm and confusion in people. But here's the difference. Nancy Piercy's approach is that she starts with a biblical worldview and she stands on the authority and the truthfulness of the Bible. Zach Wagner starts with a cultural worldview and he stands on the authority and the genuineness of personal experience. That right there is my message for you in this week's video. How do you discern what is truly toxic? Which voices can you trust in order to answer the tough questions? You can either start from the worldview of culture around you and give greater weight to the voices of personal experience, or you can start from the worldview that God is our loving and holy creator, and he has spoken to us through his revealed word. Paul wrote for us in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 3 and 4. For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths. What he's saying to us is that we have a tendency, it is easy for us to drift into listening to the people who are saying the things that make our hearts feel good about ourselves. And that's when we tend to get ourselves into trouble. When we listen to the people who are saying the things that are easy to hear, it becomes easier and easier for us to stop listening to the truth of God's revealed word. What's the cure for this? Paul's statement in the verse right before these verses, verse 2, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season. Now, obviously, there is a whole lot more that can be said about what each author says about this particular topic. But for now, that's the takeaway that I want you to think about. If you are listening to someone address a tough issue, ask yourself, what is their worldview? Did God create humans, or did we develop by chance out of the primordial ooze? Does God give us dignity as humans, or do we create our own dignity based on our feelings? Does God declare what is morally good and right, or is that decided by majority vote in our culture? And then, once you've identified their worldview, ask yourself this question: what is the basis of their authority? Are they committed to standing on the authority of God's word, or are they allowing the culture's authority to sit in judgment over God's word? When someone tells you that they know all the ways that the church's teachings lead to toxic masculinity, but then they cannot give you a clear picture of what healthy biblical masculinity is, then you have a pretty good idea that they're standing on a cultural authority instead of God's word. So how do you discern what's truly toxic teaching? What is their worldview and what is their authority? Always, always, always look for the authority and truth that comes from the Bible. And stand with me on the truth of this statement. God's word has all the wisdom you need for today's challenges.